You're listening to The Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glenn Sarvati.
Welcome to another edition of The Big Cast. My name is Glenn Sarvati on behalf of the Best Innovation Group, where we like to do cool things with financial technology. And I am just back from the CUSO Network Conference in Orlando, Florida, which I thought was an extremely good conference, about 600 people strong, and lots of great conversation and energy. We've got interviews with three people that I caught up with there. Ronaldo Hardy, the CEO of CUSO, relatively new to the position and sharing his vision of where he sees that organization going. Good stuff there. Sarah Martin, the founder and CEO of a CUSO called Pulsate, which happened to be honored with a Best New CUSO award. And Jennifer Good, also the founder and CEO of another CUSO that has won some awards in the last year or so, a CUSO called Peacefully. So we'll be speaking with both of them very shortly. Want to remind you, as always, before that you can find out more about the Best Innovation Group by checking out our website, big-fintech.com. You may want to also double check right now if your calendar is available on Wednesday, May 8th. And if you are available in the afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, I would suggest reserving the time for our CU Town Hall. The next episode of what goes on usually every 2 weeks. I think we're taking a 3-week gap because of some other stuff going on here right now. And we're going to be doing kind of part 2 of a conversation that took place in early April with our friend Ann Legg from Thrive Strategic Services about what credit unions need to do to set a foundation to successfully roll out generative AI. So that'll be a great interactive and lively and live conversation. If you happen to miss it, you can always go back to the website and watch the replay there. They run about an hour, cutownhall.com, and you'll also find the registration tab there if you'd like to join us live. No fee to attend, but you do need to register in advance. So please do check that out if you get a chance. I'm going to try to cut my comments short today because we have so much great content with the 3 interviews that we're going to be sharing. But because I can't help myself, I've just got to get one piece of kind of breaking news in here. The halving, as we've talked about, Bitcoin's change in the process of how they issue rewards. That did just happen on Friday, I don't know why I keep jumping ahead and thinking we're in May already. Friday, April 19th. John Best has been talking about this for some time, and you can go back to our archives and find some of the conversations where he's kind of covered this. He believes it obviously will have some level of an impact on the pricing of Bitcoin going forward, which has been holding up very nicely, riding high around $65,000. And we'll see. This is very new news. It looks like it got the price got a little bump, not a big one, but a little one. It was sitting at about 64 before the halving event took place. And just to be clear, what happens is the amount of reward in Bitcoin you get by mining new Bitcoin drops by half, hence the name, every roughly 4 years or so, based on the number of blocks that are out there. And this is when we happened to hit it this last time. The price took a little bit of a dip just before and then kind of came up after that. It'll be interesting to see where things go. And I'm going to double check with John. We'll report back on that, what he's thinking. The price has been riding high for so long now for a lot of other reasons. And I'd suggest that the whole notion that ETFs and the availability of trading with Bitcoin in a more conventional fashion probably has as much to do with that as anything. So whether this has as much of an aspect of improvement, I don't know. But the thing that really caught my eye, and I saw this multiple times yesterday during the NBA playoffs, Coinbase has actually used this as an opportunity to launch a new commercial in the space. And they actually specifically refer to something as arcane in my mind as the halving. We'll post a link. There's a version of the commercial available on YouTube. They do a pretty clever thing. What they do is they kind of use a pizza delivery as a metaphor for how much Bitcoin is worth. They point out that the dollar has lost value, which it obviously naturally does with inflation. And their point is that Bitcoin gains value. And what they do is they show one pizza being delivered back in 2012, which, of course, if you may remember, that's why I think it's kind of clever. That was the first commercial use of Bitcoin that apparently one of the early users actually bought a pizza with some of their Bitcoin. Then they talk about in 2016, and they show a bigger pile of pizza, and 2020, and an even bigger pile of pizza. And then pretty much you get overwhelmed by pizza boxes by 2024. They do this in 4-year increments. I don't think that's by coincidence, because that conveniently skips the crypto winter that we saw that ran through starting in late 21 and through 2022 and much of 2023. So somehow that doesn't get into the conversation. But the bottom line is, I think it's interesting that this drives between the fact that Bitcoin price is kind of held up at a higher level again now for about 5 months. And now you see some of this attention returning in people like Coinbase getting back into the mass media talking about it. So be curious to see where we go from here with the whole notion of the public attention around cryptocurrency in general. With that, on to our first conversation. I think no better way to start it with the CEO of CUSO, Ronaldo Hardy, sharing with us kind of early in the stages of the event. He had already been on stage talking about the vision that he has for the organization and a little bit of some new twists to that. Let's hear it in his own words. I'm here with Ronaldo Hardy, the CEO of CUSO, at the end of, well, I guess, what do you want to call it, day one or day two? Day 1.5?
I mean, it's technically day one of the conference.
Yeah.
Yesterday was considered pre-conference.
It was just a warm-up?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, the energy is great. Congratulations. I mean, we got one more day to go, and also a Thursday, too, with the additional kind of the T2 with the underground and whatnot. And the best new...
Next big idea.
Thank you. I couldn't get it out.
It's coming.
That's at the end. But anyway, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank
I wanted
you.
to give you the chance because this morning you really laid out the new vision. This is your first CUSO. You've been in the job now for not quite a year, right?
Yeah, it's actually been a little over 8 months. So,
okay.
Yeah, we about 8.5 months on this journey, and I'm excited. I think that we're poised to do something quite amazing.
As I say, the energy is great. And you really did a great job, I think, of laying out a vision this morning. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of lay that out for the audience as well. I'm sure you'd like that to be, communicated as far as wide as you can.
Absolutely. So we have a vision of fueling the future of finance through innovation and collaboration, which is very important to us. We want to make our contribution in that discussion. And we want to create an ecosystem. I said this earlier, we're stewarding the entrepreneurial ecosystem for the credit union industry. We want to create a complete ecosystem that considers all facets coming together, credit unions, CUSOs, fintechs, and service partners to develop the very best solutions for our industry. And so
I think, the innovation point is great. I mean,
correct.
What logical place it's going to come from is the fintechs, many of which, a subset of which, but hopefully a healthy subset will be CUSOs.
Yes.
With the members, the ownership stake in there as well.
Yes.
And as you say, the more seats at the table, the better. I mean, inclusion would be a key because the name CUSO implies you're an organization for CUSOs.
Yes.
But it goes much broader than that.
And it confuses people.
Yeah.
I had to be honest, even when I was a CEO of a credit union, I didn't necessarily look into CUSO and think I can be engaged. Yeah. So we're working to change that perception because our ecosystem is open to credit unions, CUSOs, fintechs, and credit union service partners. We believe that in order to have the best collaboration that will truly inspire innovation, we do need representation from all corners of the industry. And that's the only way you build the best solutions.
Yeah, of course.
Because we're all seeing it from a different vantage point. So if we are not all present at the table to collaborate, driving innovation, then we're missing it somewhere. So
now I know that there's always been fintechs out here, and
yes.
a lot of the reason is they can kind of see the secret sauce here and say, okay, we want to do this CUSO thing too.
Yes.
But I think you mentioned that this is the highest share of the audience that's actually credit unions.
Yeah,
right?
We had about 30% of our audience be credit unions this year, so that's a jump for us. We love the day that we walk in, and that number is about 50%. That we drive a very balanced, if you will, ecosystem.
But when you think about the exchange of ideas, I mean, you've got the CUSOs presenting on the floor.
Yes.
They can partner with other CUSOs, but the ones they really want to reach are the credit unions. So,
and if you think about it, like credit unions are familiar with what they really need. That was I enjoyed today asking that question on the panel discussion, the curious conversation we had about reimagining credit unions. I enjoyed asking that question of the three CEOs. Hey, while you have entrepreneurs in this room, the creative thinkers, let them know what you really need them to be developing in order to respond to some of your biggest opportunities or even challenges. So I loved having that, but that's one of the reasons why we need all parties represented so that we can develop.
And I thought there was some really refreshing ideas around artificial intelligence there too. I mean, we're not going to be the experts, but we can collaborate. And then I thought, Sarah Martin made a great point. Don't let that be your reason for outsourcing the member relationship.
Yes. And I thought it was very interesting that, and this came up a few times today, I know Jim Nussel even mentioned it, just kind of understanding that even with the interest, or the entrance, if you will, and I would even say, I would argue not the entrance, but the expansion of generative AI. Some people think that it will become a replacement for humans. I believe that it's an enhancement.
Agreed.
And I thought it was very interesting listening to Jim talk about protecting the human connection. I mean, he kept coming back to that in some shape, form, or fashion. It kept coming back to people, and truly the people helping people executing that. I think he really, really nailed that, and I thought that was just tremendous to hear what his focus is, ours, how we align. And you'll see a lot more working together with CUSO and America's Credit Union.
I was going to say, I mean, that was one of your key messages around the vision is greater alignment, not just with credit unions, but with other industry groups and things like that.
Absolutely, and you'll see more of that. I'm grateful throughout the years of being able to build great relationships, and one of the things sitting in this seat, I've been able to build upon those relationships, and it's great because I get to see different leaders dispersed throughout the industry, and we're all trying to tackle something. We have so much to do as an industry, and so we're all trying to own our part of that, and finding ways to do it together is so much better. Look at what's happening. I mean, who would have thought that the day that CUNA and NAFCU would merge become, and then PSU and co-op. I think that's a signal to the rest of the industry that we are ready for more collaboration, and we want to really be a connection point for that. We say like our approach, and I talked about this earlier today, we believe that it stair steps through cultivating collaboration, that then inspires innovation to scale solutions, ultimately advancing credit unions, and then changing lives. So sometimes when you're not working directly in a credit union, you may forget that the work you do every day, ultimately on the other end of that, is a life that will be changed.
That's the end game.
That's the end game. So, while from this vantage point of view, CUSO or FinTech, that life change may go through a credit union, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. So we want to, our strategic priorities, cultivate collaboration, inspire innovation, strengthen sustainability. When we look at the journey there, that's what it looks like. We cultivate collaboration that inspires innovation to scale solutions that will advance credit unions and ultimately change lives.
Let's talk a bit about the sustainability piece, because it's a different kind of form of sustainability than I think what people usually think about in terms of green energy and things like that. We talked about a couple of things. You mentioned diversifying the revenue stream to support your operations.
Absolutely.
And then also, advocacy.
So I love what we're doing. And when we look at strengthening sustainability for the credit union industry, we do believe that we have a role around advocacy that opens up the opportunity for innovation and collaboration. So we've really been expanding how we view advocacy. Our work is primarily in regulatory advocacy. That's what makes more sense.
It does. I agree.
We will join the conversation around legislative advocacy. We were actually in a conversation recently where it was suggested that for one of the things that we love to accomplish, that maybe we look at some legislative advocacy, but we do a lot of work in the regulatory side, and we have been expanding our conversation. Some people would think, oh, well, you only advocate for CUSOs. Well, no. What we want to advocate for is how do we create the best opportunity for innovation and collaboration in our industry. So even things like fintech investment, that's one of the conversations that we're having now, because with the emergence of technology and fintech growing, one of the challenges that we do have is that credit unions have that limitation around direct investment. So we're having to create alternative pathways to invest. Well, what we understand, and part of the credit union value proposition, is ownership. So if we can invest, if we cannot invest in fintech, we have no ownership. if we have no ownership, we really have no voice.
Mm-hmm.
And considering that we need fintech more often, then we really need to have a voice in how the strategies are set, how the products are developed. We need to be able to speak to that. And so that's just an example of going a step further in how we're looking at advocacy now. It's really about removing the barriers around innovation. And we do believe that, hey, there has to be safeguards.
Sure.
So we're not advocating for an irresponsible industry, but we do want to make sure that we have the possibilities or the opportunities in front of us, and that they're not limited by regulation that maybe we don't need.
And I mean, it makes sense to me that, you want to be aligned, but in an ecosystem, especially a collaborative one like ours, I would think that, what you're trying to do is move the entire ecosystem forward. So whatever regulatory objectives you would think would be pretty well aligned with the credit unions. And if they're not, there's probably a conversation to be had, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that is, you'll see us doing more there. One of the things I love, I've had a very interesting journey throughout my career and throughout my journey here. I've had the opportunity to work in a credit union. I've been CEO of 2 credit unions. Prior to coming here, I was one of 6 owners of a really strong consulting firm, CUSO Strategic Planning. We were about 38 employees when I left. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good consultancy. Yeah. And so I have the credit union CEO background and the small business owner. And coming into this ecosystem, I understand the two and how they work.
And both in a relatively recent time frame,
too.
Hasn't changed that much.
They really haven't.
Yeah.
So really understanding like credit union framework, but also small business framework. I was telling them, moving from an asset-based, strategy. When you're leading a credit union, you have an asset base that helps you to drive all of your financial decision making. You move into small business. Now it's cash flow management, and that's a completely different ball game. And I'm in the right seat now to marry the two experiences to create something good for our industry.
And one more thing to kind of throw into that mix in your resume that I just found out this morning is you were in the first official group of crashers.
The first official.
To the GAC.
Yes, so I think the very first group, they were unofficial.
Truly crashing.
They truly crashed. And then it really got anointed and blessed by the CUNA at that time. They said, okay, we will establish this in 2011 was year 2, but the first official, and I was a part of that group. Brandon Michaels was a part of that group.
You mentioned somebody else again who's here today, right?
Yeah, and so it's been funny because he and I, from a career perspective, we literally have made moves in our career almost at the same time every time. So it's funny just to watch that growth process. But to go from being a crasher that was eager to do something great for our industry and to be able to mature along the way, to sit in a seat like this where I can do more, my mind is blown. And to hear, my wife talked about it earlier. She's like, we've been married, over 16 years now, and it's talking about meeting me as a member service supervisor.
Oh, that's right.
That's super passionate about credit unions. And anytime somebody would say something about a bank, I'm like, oh, you got to be in a credit union. And to carry that passion forward to this moment, I'm very interested and curious even about what the next 25 years will look like, because I know I got a lot more in me and a lot more to see.
I know you just mentioned you're only now aging out of that young professional category.
Now I'm a 40-year-old, so I'm like, I helped to start all of these things that I can't even be a part of anymore.
Yeah, but like you say, now you got the seat, and you can make sure that those changes that you were envisioning can actually,
there you go.
You're working from the inside.
Absolutely.
Ronaldo Hardy, thanks so much. This has been great. One more day of the conference. If people want to find out more, I'm sure you have a strong social media presence.
Absolutely, and I would say definitely get engaged. The next year will be quite an experience, and I will definitely say that is the key word there. We're going to make a significant shift.
You said this was the transition year. Enough familiar, but I definitely feel the new energy.
You feel the new energy, and I thought that was important to not shock the system so much that it's like I'm in something I can't recognize. So we wanted to keep a familiar format, but bring fresh elements around that. Like you said, it's a lot of energy. From what I'm hearing, it's funny because I'm a new attendee, so I don't really have anything to compare it to other than what I've seen per se. But from what I've heard, people feel a fresh vibe and energy, and what we plan to do next will be quite an experience. So I would not miss our conference in 2025. It is going to be April 14th through the 17th.
Oh, you got the dates
at
ready.
the Wynn in
back
Las
in Vegas.
Vegas.
He alternates that. We're back to
we'll
the
be
Vegas
at the Wynn
shift.
in Las Vegas, April 14th through the 17th of 2025.
And best way to keep track is always NCUSO.org, right?
NCUSO.org, absolutely.
Ronaldo, thanks so much.
Thank you.
So during the event, I also found out Ronaldo mentioned that he is also a pastor, which makes perfectly good sense because he's such a great evangelist for the CUSO cause and a great inspiration. He's a wonderful, inspiring speaker, and I think that becomes pretty obvious when you talk to him about this stuff. I love the idea that, it's kind of been, I don't know if I'd say a well-kept secret, that NCUSO, the organization, is not just for CUSOs. Credit unions are an incredibly important part of that ecosystem too, and he's trying to make sure that that's a much better understood idea. He was on stage with Jim Nussle, the head of America's Credit Unions, for a fireside chat as well. No fire, just chat, I guess, more likely. Jim made an interesting point that I hadn't thought of before, and he didn't have actual data to back this up, but his speculation that feels pretty spot on to me is that at the recent GAC, he would suggest that maybe of the credit union attendees, probably 30%, give or take, had probably at some point worked at a bank. So we're not nearly as kind of parochial a business and hermetically sealed in the world as some people might think. I thought that was just kind of an interesting perspective. I first ran into Jennifer Good last year at VentureTech. She is the founder and CEO of a company called Peacefully, which finished first in the first time that VentureTech had done this, a launch party for early stage fintechs looking to get involved in the space. So we did not get a chance to speak to her at the time. So I was happy to see her show up at this event and saw her on stage sharing some thoughts and managed to track her down and find out a little bit more about what's been happening with Peacefully since then. So let's have a listen. Here in a surprisingly pleasant morning in April at NCUSO outside in Orlando with Jennifer Good, the CEO and founder of Peacefully. Jennifer, I first saw and became aware of your company last November at the VentureTech launch party, which you won of the early stage companies that were presenting there. So
yeah,
and here we are again.
Yeah, so happy to be here. The beautiful day and the fountains in the background.
People know we're actually talking live.
Yeah,
we can hear the trucks going by.
Yeah, and so happy to be here. It's been tremendous. It's 4 or 5 months now in the credit union industry. Have learned so much and just been so impressed by the industry, the commitment to members.
Well, that's a thing that I think is really interesting. Is, I mean, literally that was your introduction to the credit union world at VentureTech last November, right?
Yeah. Besides having a mortgage at a credit union and being a member of a credit union as a kid, I had no idea or hadn't even thought of credit unions as a way to go to market with Peacefully. But Elizabeth Cavan, who I had known from life insurance side, said, hey, I think credit unions would be a good fit. They really care about innovation. They really care about members. It's doing good, the double bottom line of doing good as well as financial returns. So you should just come. So I went to VentureTech pitch and then just had a tremendous outpouring of interest and support from there.
And just to let people, for people who are not familiar, Elizabeth is part of the Circle Fund
Yes.
who have made an investment into Peacefully.
Yes.
And let's actually step back from there. Peacefully is involved in providing end-of-life information care, I guess you would say. Maybe it's give a bit about the elevator pitch on Peacefully's mission.
Maybe I could just back up a little bit and tell how I got into it, because I think it brings it to life.
Yeah.
So I was in management consulting, and my grandmother got terminal cancer, and she really cared about planning for end of life. She put a sticky note on everything in the house about who it would go to, so my family wouldn't fight over it. Not that I think we would have fight, but she was just that thoughtful. But then after she passed, we realized all the important things hadn't been done. So there was an account that didn't have her name on it, and so that triggered probate. That didn't have my grandfather's name on it, so that triggered probate. No one knew where the title to the car was or the safety deposit box with the valuables that she'd mentioned. And especially for my grandfather,
who was still with us.
He was still with us, and he was actually a judge. So it's like, okay, if he's this confused
this is
about
another
it,
one of these stories where if this group of people can't figure this out or doesn't have the capability to, in the current structure, what about people who are not, more in the loop on these types of situations?
Exactly, and I just thought it was so existentially depressing that we couldn't just be sitting there telling stories about her life and celebrating her life and grieving. And instead we're all on these customer service phone calls, which are annoying at the best of times. And so started Peacefully to help people who do want to plan comprehensively. And then on the post-test side, whether or not you planned or not, be that empathetic support to guide you through the process, and take away that administrative burden so you can focus on what matters. So in summary, Peacefully is a planning tool that's comprehensive, not just the legal docs, but also how to care for pets and kids, to where all your financial accounts and do you have beneficiaries on them, and then also sort of a post-death checklist / TurboTax type tool to automate it with real human support throughout.
So a couple things kind of to follow up from that. I think you mentioned before we started recording, your initial go-to-market was at hospitals and care facilities?
Yes.
And then Elizabeth was one of the ones that said, this sounds like a great fit for the credit. And again, from a trusted agent standpoint, dealing with financial affairs, it does seem like a natural fit. And again, I'm guessing that your target demographic isn't the aging individual. Probably it's the successor, the potential executor of the will, the next of kin, the family that's going to be dealing with this.
Yeah, it is our main sort of the sandwich generation. So 45 to 65, you're thinking about your parents passing, or potentially a spouse, and want to either get ahead of it or have this sort of collaborative conversation. It's both the successor the heir, as well as the person passing.
So as you mentioned, I mean, you just started talking to credit unions, but obviously with Circle Fund, that helps you get those introductions. Sounds like you've made some pretty darn good progress in the last 5 months or so.
Yeah, so I hope to be able to announce in the next month several go-lives with credit unions of various sizes. So really excited about that. I think the other thing is I've just had so many great conversations. So Circle took us around to different credit unions, and we had a week at each credit union and just learned so much. So it's actually helped us adapt our product to be more tailored to credit unions, thinking through some of the things that credit unions need to make it an even better fit.
So do you now kind of create two versions of the product, one for credit unions, one for the care facilities, or do you find that those same capabilities really apply across the board?
Same capabilities apply across the board. And actually so we're doing research actually with the NIH on patients with advanced cancer and their families, what they like and how to adapt it. I mean, our next stage is to do research on Alzheimer's and dementia. So I think those learnings are funneling in to what we're bringing to the credit union industry. However, there are features or adaptations that came from the credit union industry that I think will benefit people even if they're coming from hospitals as well. So for example, thinking about how to make sure beneficiaries are updated and simplifying the process of opening estate bank accounts and some of the security features as well. I think the sort of similarity between the hospital side of things and the credit union side is there's a trust and a desire.
Yes, the trusted agent again.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and there's some research that we did that people want both their hospitals and their financial institutions to help comprehensively with end of life.
Interesting.
And addressing these issues.
And there may be, all things to all people. I mean, some may prefer, for whatever reason, the hospital. Some may prefer the financial institution. And whichever way, you've got a tool for them that just which channel they choose to pursue and engage.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's probably worth mentioning. I'm sorry that that the event here. I mean, you were on a panel about financial wellness, which is how we reconnected after Venture Tech. Which again, this comes down to financial wellness and the great wealth transfer too, which we've talked about.
Yeah, so 70 trillion in wealth transferring over the next 20 years. And I think there's an opportunity. We were talking a little bit before about all this effort to recruit the younger generation, yes. Gen Z. That's in business, everyone kind of knows the customers you already have are the cheaper to get. I think it applies to members too. And so if you can really support the members you have, be there for them, and then reach their whole family by being there for them at a difficult time, I think there's an opportunity to get
deepen relationships. Absolutely, no question. Makes a ton of sense. Yeah. So if people want to find out more, obviously you've been pretty available in the marketplace already and having a lot of conversations. The website's the best place, or how do people find out?
Well, hopefully I don't get a lot of spam from this, but email me at jennifer@peacefully.com. And
And the website is
website is peacefully.com as well. So
and is that tailored? Is there individual kind of breakout for hospitals versus financial institutions, or it's kind of there for everyone?
It's kind of there as almost like a direct-to-consumer resource right now. But we are, for credit unions, say custom or white labeling that.
Got it.
And doing separate
co-brand
pages.
Or truly white labeled, or how is it?
Flexible.
All of the above.
Yeah.
I just thought you mentioned the NIH. I mean, did you have a connection into the healthcare system that got you those types of? How did you wind up with that kind of collaboration?
I wanted data. I wanted to prove that what we say we're doing in terms of helping people's lives, helping with financial well-being, anxiety, depression around end of life, helping people plan on the medical side as well was true. And so I was looking for research partners and just drafted up I drafted up a grant, and then I blasted it out to all the palliative care researchers in the country.
As you can probably tell from the sound quality, we had ventured outside hoping to get a quiet corner to talk, and eventually the whistling wind got the better of us. But thanks again for Jennifer Good for taking the time to speak, the CEO and founder of Peacefully. And it's pretty amazing. I have not heard a story like that before. They actually wound up getting 6 figures of government funding to basically do the research to prove out their thesis about the benefits of working with a solution like this. Also confirmed after the fact that Peacefully is indeed a CUSO. And it's always interesting that, again, Big Tent theory, just because you're in a CUSO, don't make the assumption that everybody you're seeing is a CUSO. A lot of, and true of venture tech as well. A lot of the organizations that are coming are interested in engaging with credit unions, may not even be familiar with the CUSO structure, and as they get closer into it and realize the benefits, particularly if they intend to really kind of go heavy into the credit union space, that's important. Peacefully is now a CUSO. They're part of the accelerator program of the Circle Fund, and I believe that requires you to be a CUSO, so that may have been the triggering event, but obviously happy to have them in the mix. One of the other things that CUSO did across the event was awarded some very kind of prominent members of the community a couple of things, including New CUSO of the Year. And that award went to a company called Pulsate, which, again, I'm going to let you hear it directly from the founder and CEO, Sarah Martin. When you hear about their path, I think it's kind of hard to argue with the credentials that they have for being the New CUSO of the Year. So here was our conversation with Sarah Martin. First off, congratulations, and thanks for taking the time to talk, Sarah.
Oh, thanks so much, Glenn. It's an honor to be recognized by CUSO for the work we're doing for the credit union movement.
So let's talk a bit about both Pulsate's mission, and then as we talked about, it's you've had a really nice growth curve that, quite frankly, kind of coincides with the pandemic, which really brought into focus the need for your product. So if you can say a bit about what Pulsate is all about, and maybe a bit about your journey.
Sure. So Pulsate is a member engagement solution or digital engagement solution for credit unions and community banks. We live within digital banking, and we give the financial institution the capabilities they need to be able to engage their member and make sure that they're utilizing and adopting the products and services that the credit union have to offer. We talk about being there to deepen the relationship with the member so that when they have a financial need, they're infinitely more likely to choose the credit union for that financial need and not going to the other guy, and definitely not Googling it. So our mission is driven by, in order to be top of wallet, you need to be top of mind.
And that was a separate conversation. You were on a panel just before as well, that separate and apart from the award, but you were mentioning the fact that people have short attention spans. And even if we have the products, if you're not there with the awareness at the moment of truth, that's going to be where you fall short.
So, your members are checking digital banking. 80% of digitally engaged consumers are checking their banking app at least once per month.
And you are saying that Pulsate resides within
digital banking. And we see some of our customers, as much as 40% of their consumers are checking it every single day. There's a level of engagement within digital banking that never existed before. Can you imagine the stampedes at the branch if 40% of your customers turned up every day? Come to the branch
every day and say hi,
So it is, the engagement is there. The consumers are coming, they are wanting to be supported by their financial institution. but yet what's available to the credit union to turn those micro engagements into a deeper relationship. And that's what we do. We live within digital banking, and we have a multi-channel solution that's data driven, enabling the credit union just to deepen that relationship. Because if they're spending more time with you in digital banking, if they're using more services, if they're signing up for your credit score, for even simple things like e-statements, every single thing they do with you is deepening that relationship digitally, so that when they have the financial need, they're more likely to think of you. And that's so important. So we talk about being top. In order to be top of wallet, you have to be top of mind. Before the pandemic,
let's go back. I mean, because you mentioned, I believe, 2020. Cycling back.
Yes.
You had 3 credit unions live? Is that what I remember?
I think we had
hearing?
about 3 credit unions live, maybe 5 financial institutions in total. And we were 6.5 people, 6.5 staff. And the pandemic hit. So before that, the pandemic hit, we had been serving retail, quick serve restaurants, and a number of bricks and mortar plus digital industries.
So there is a pivot involved here, because obviously there's nothing like an online banking digital portal that you have to worry about with quick serve restaurants. So it's a different,
it's a different industry. So very early, it became clear through talking to that small handful of customers that they were overburdened by being understaffed and having exceptional increase in calls to the call center. So basically their members are not coming to the branch anymore. How do they proactively serve them? And we slipped right into that opportunity, and we grew from like a handful of financial institutions. Actually came out of the pandemic with almost 100.
It's amazing. So over the course of 18 months or so?
18 months, 2 years. But during that time, many of our customers would have spent time with me, and I spent hours every day talking to credit unions, helping them use Pulsate to do just that, proactively serve their members because they couldn't come to the branch.
And this is, I think, particularly relevant for credit unions because, their distinctive competence and their competitive advantage came with that customer intimacy, which tended to come from face-to-face interactions, which suddenly didn't exist.
Exactly. You're
so
hitting
you did
the nail on the head there.
And you did see greater uptake on the credit union side compared to other?
Yes. So we used that. And I guess that's where an initial spurt of growth came from. But of course, the pandemic also actually just changed consumer behaviors. Mm-hmm. And they no longer want to come to the branch. Yeah. So it's a shift in behavior. So we continue, and the relationships I established and the team at Pulsate established with the industry throughout that period continues to be the relationships that we use to collaborate in our innovation journey. And our product roadmap is very much influenced by those strong relationships that we have with our customers across every state in America. So it's we have a very collaborative approach to our innovation roadmap. And actually, we've just launched our CAB, our very first customer advisory board, to formalize some of that. Yes,
and exactly. You literally have a credit union in every state you mentioned, or
almost every state.
Wow.
I believe that we don't have any in North Dakota.
Okay, everybody, North Dakota, you hear that?
But it's okay. We will take customers from any state. You don't have to be from North Dakota. We like helping. We don't mind what state they're from. But so yeah, and it's funny that you say that about the branch-based banking, because actually the credit union movement has been born and flourished in this branch-based banking environment where maybe you're trying to buy a car, you would go to the branch and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying this car. Can I get a loan?" And the teller would say, "Of course you can have that loan. Would you like this insurance product with that?" Yeah. "Oh, and I see you don't have this card from us yet. Do you want to sign up for that now while you're here?" And actually, the member would leave the branch with 3, maybe even 4 products they didn't have before. And that's so important to the loyalty and wallet share. Mm-hmm. But if they're not coming to the branch anymore, how are you achieving the same depth of wallet?
Yep.
It's very, very difficult. And I guess that's why we continue to grow. And it's those opportunities that we're bringing to credit union to be able to say, to deepen that relationship, expand the wallet share, because they're actually top of mind when the financial need occurs. Because, my goodness, we can't have credit unions' own members going to Google when they have a financial need.
Yeah, I mean, as we always talk about, you already have the customer. It's going to be a lot more efficient to actually cross-sell than to find a new one.
And it's really worrying because you have a situation where credit union's own member has like 4, 5, 6 different financial products from 4, 5, 6 different financial institutions, which is so dangerous for the individual, for the economy. Because if, as a consumer, you don't have one centralized financial footprint, you no longer have control over your own finances. It was already difficult to budget as a consumer when you had a bank that or credit union dealt with for everything. But now it's this decentralization of the financial footprint, and that's just super dangerous. How is a consumer at risk now able to manage their finances? We talk about, 10% of the American consumer base that don't have more than €400 savings. If something goes wrong, they can't even afford to fix their car. In a situation where they have a centralized financial footprint, that's kind of, you can at least see how they can go to their financial institution and potentially get a solution around it. Whereas they actually don't even know
That's
how much money
a great point.
they owe.
I mean, I think about, it's one thing if you're of an affluent, situation, and you spread thousands across multiple. When you're talking about somebody who's straining to make ends meet, having it dispersed among multiple places just makes life that much more complicated.
It's so complicated for the consumer, for that member. And I believe in the credit unions, the credit union movement, and how important it is for the members to have financial health and financial wealth, and how the movement helps these consumers grow their financial well-being. But if we are not able to keep them with their bulk of their financial products from one financial institution, that mission becomes truly almost impossible. So there's many reasons why we do what we do. But it is at its heart about ensuring that when the member has a financial need, they're actually going to their credit union and not somebody else.
So you're a new CUSO. We talked about kind of going back to 2020, but I mean, when you saw this growth, this is where you really saw the opportunity with credit unions, which led to you becoming a CUSO, correct?
Yes, indeed. And the decision to become a CUSO is multifaceted. But, we are so delighted to be a CUSO because I want the credit union movement to know how important that credit unions are to Pulsate. And I think for us to be recognised today for the work that we are doing with credit unions, it's truly wonderful, and it's so inspirational and motivating for our team as well, because we work hard. Yeah. We work long hours. We cover many time zones. So to be recognised, it's really motivating for the entire team at Pulsate.
And it was an impressive piece of lucite, pretty heavy too. You're going to have a heavy bag going home.
A heavy award. It's going to be interesting to see what the baggage fee is going to be like when I
Luckily, it's not
bag.
metallic. We'd have a problem with the security as well. So if people want to find out more, what's the best way?
Well, Pulsate, very easy to find me on LinkedIn. I am very active there, and the entire team are there. So it's Pulsate, Pulsate. I'm Sarah Martin. I'm the CEO. And LinkedIn is by far and away the easiest way to find me.
Sarah Martin, congratulations again for the award, and great talking to you.
Oh, thank you, Glenn.
So, as I'm sure you can hear, Sarah is not from these here parts. She's company originally from Ireland, but as we heard, very interesting pivot that they've made along the way, and their business is entirely U.S.-centric, and most of their people here are in the U.S. at this point. And I get the distinct impression that Sarah is spending the vast majority of her time in the U.S. these days as well. We gathered a whole bunch of, like I said, it was a great a series of conversations. And with the word network in the title of the CUSO Network Conference, the networking felt particularly robust to me. A lot of late night conversations in the bar and in various receptions and things like that. And I managed to track down a few other folks for some conversations that we'd love to share with you as well. We'll have some more of those next week and maybe even beyond that, as well as some other hot topics that we've been having conversations with some movers and shakers in the space. So hopefully you'll check back in with us next week for that. Until then, as I said, you can always check out more about the Best Innovation Group at our website, big-fintech.com. If you go to the media tab there, you will find all kinds of past episodes of the Bigcast on all kinds of cool topics. I'm including a link in our show notes to our earlier conversation with Ronaldo Hardy when he was just a few months into the job at CUSO, and it was a little bit of a longer conversation about what he was, where he was at in terms of thinking through in his listening tour about what the CUSO, how he wanted to try to put his own stamp on it. He mentions that again next year, the CUSO conference will probably look different again. He thought that that he didn't want to overly shock the system, so there were some changes made this year. He expects to make more by next year as well. But there's all kinds of great conversations to be had there. Also, I would suggest you check out last week's episode with Don Cardinal from the Financial Data Exchange, with a really hot topic about data standards and sharing. And have gotten some interesting feedback on that one as well. That I think a lot of people have found that to be something that we ought to be spending some more time thinking about. With that, as I said, please do check in next Tuesday. We have new content every week here on the Bigcast. You can always find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, etc., or directly at the website big-fintech.com. Please do let us know what you think. Always love to hear from you. And hopefully we'll be checking in next week for more of these types of conversations. As always, thanks for listening.
Check back each week for the latest from the Bigcast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big Fintech, email info@big-fintech.com, or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.